Your nightmares don't lie, the real origin of monsters. Hello, explorers of the occult. Have you ever wondered, in the middle of a horror movie or reading a fantasy book, where on earth we get these ideas from? Fire-breathing dragons, bloodthirsty vampires, are they just crazy inventions? Today we're going to do something different. We're not going to stay on the surface. We're going to embark on a descent together through 5 levels of knowledge about the origin of monsters. I promise you one thing. When we return to the surface, you will never look at a dragon, a zombie, or the creature hiding under your bed the same way again. Level 1, the surface we all know. Let's start with the most obvious, what we all take for granted. Monsters are the villains of stories. Think of a dragon. What is it? A giant winged lizard that breathes fire and guards treasure. It's the ultimate obstacle the hero must overcome. It's simple, iconic, and the basis of thousands of tales we've heard since we were children. But these creatures aren't just in books. Think about the last time you watched a horror movie. That adrenaline rush, your heart pounding 1,000 miles an hour when the monster appears, and you love it. It's curious, isn't it? We flee from danger in real life, but we pay money to be scared in a movie theater. Monsters are a safe way to experience extreme emotions. They are a roller coaster for our minds. And of course, this isn't new. Where did this idea of inventing beings to scare us come from? Imagine you're a person from thousands of years ago. You have no science, no weather satellites. Suddenly the sky darkens, there's a terrible rumble, and lightning splits a tree in two. What happened? It's much easier and even more comforting to imagine that an immense, furious creature lives up there than to accept that the world is a chaotic, inexplicable place. The first monsters were the answer to the whys of a terrifying world. Finally, the last basic fact: monsters are the embodiment of our fears. The fear of darkness, death, disease, the unknown. A zombie is our fear of losing consciousness, of becoming an empty shell. A vampire is our fear of illness and of having our life drained. But here's the question that starts it all. If they are a reflection of such human fears, why did so many cultures that never had contact with each other imagine monsters so incredibly similar? What we've just seen is level 1. It's the tip of the iceberg, the pocket version everyone knows. It's fascinating, yes, but it's just the wrapping of the gift. It's the skin of the monster, not its heart. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret engines move it underneath? What is it in our biology and psychology that compels us to create these beings? It's time to dive deeper. Welcome to Level 2. Level 2, the hidden mechanisms. Remember we wondered why so many cultures imagined dragons? Here's the first big revelation. For centuries, in places as distinct as China and Europe, people found huge, gigantic bones on the ground. Bones of creatures no one had seen alive? What were they? They knew nothing of dinosaurs. But they did know about lizards and snakes. The most logical explanation for them was that they belonged to a colossal reptile species. They had just unknowingly discovered dinosaur fossils, and our brain automatically shaped them into dragons. This process is governed by an invisible rule of our brain, pareidolia. It's a technical name, but the idea is super simple. It's why you see faces in clouds and stains on the wall or on your breakfast toast. Your brain is programmed, almost obsessed, with finding patterns and familiar faces everywhere, even where they don't exist. So when our ancestors found a T-Rex skull, their brain didn't see an extinct animal. It saw the face of a monster. Now let's talk about vampires and connect them to a factory error in our brain called confirmation bias. This bias is like wearing glasses that only let you see things that confirm what you already believe. Imagine that in your village someone dies of an unknown disease, like tuberculosis, which leaves people pale, thin, and coughing blood. If you already have the slightest suspicion that something supernatural is happening, your brain, thanks to this bias, will ignore all logical explanations and focus only on the evidence that supports the idea of a vampire. Pallor, blood, case closed for a tricky brain. And this idea was reinforced by a fascinating story. In ancient times, the decomposition process wasn't well understood. Sometimes when exhuming a body for some reason, they would find it bloated by gases, with stretched and rosy skin, and a trickle of blood, purge fluid, on the lips. To them, the image was clear. This was no normal dead person. They looked well-fed and had been drinking blood. They weren't seeing forensic science, they were seeing irrefutable proof that a vampire had returned from the grave. And incredibly enough, creating these monsters solved a super important human need, the need for control. Think about it. It's terrifying to think that an invisible random disease can take your family. It's chaotic. But if you can blame a vampire, suddenly the problem has a face. And if it has a face, you can fight it. You can use garlic, a steak. Suddenly you have a plan. Monsters give us the illusion of control over a world that in reality, we don't control at all. The last mechanism at this level completely changes the idea that monsters are inventions. Think of them more like viruses, ideas that spread from mind to mind. Monster stories compete with each other, and only the stickiest ones, those that best exploit our fears and brain biases, survive and spread across generations. The Dracula we know today is not the vampire of 500 years ago. It's the optimized version, the one that has won the battle of cultural evolution. So as we close level 2, we realize something incredible. Understanding these hidden gears in our mind not only explains where monsters come from, it gives us power. Power to understand why we believe certain fake news, why we fall into certain mental traps. Understanding the monster is starting to understand ourselves. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because this is where the story turns into true chaos, where clean explanations shatter into 1,000 pieces. Welcome to level 3. Level 3, the chaos of reality, debates and complexities. Here's the first big fight. On one side are those who say monsters are 100% products of our minds, as we've seen. Metaphors, biases, and fears. On the other side, there's a camp that suggests some of these legends could be distorted memories of real events. Could stories of Yetis or Bigfoots be echoes of ancient encounters between our species and other hominids like the Neanderthals, who became extinct? The debate is on. Are monsters ghosts of the mind or ghosts of history? Now let me tell you a secret. There's a very popular myth that monsters are childish things, and we love to believe it because it makes us feel adult, rational, above those primitive fears. But it's a trap. The truth is, adults need monsters more than ever. Frankenstein's monster isn't just a giant with bolts. It's our fear of uncontrolled science. Zombies aren't just the Walking Dead. They're our anxiety about senseless consumerism and societal collapse. Monsters grow with us. And this leads us to an incredible paradox. We create monsters to be the embodiment of everything we hate and fear: death, otherness, evil. And yet, we love them. We dress up as them for Halloween, buy their figures, devour their series. We are fascinated by Dracula. We feel pity for Frankenstein's monster. Why are we so attracted to creatures that, in theory, should cause us the deepest revulsion? It's a dilemma that forces us to look at very strange parts of ourselves. And here we need to get serious for a moment. There's a dark side to all of this that we often ignore. Throughout history, the label monster has been one of the most powerful and terrible weapons. It has been used to dehumanize other peoples, other races, people with different ideas. When you call someone a monster, you give yourself permission to treat them inhumanely. So the question is hard but necessary. Is our play with monsters always harmless? Even the way we debate this has changed. Centuries ago, the big question was, do dragons really exist? Can we find one? Today, the question is completely different. What does our obsession with zombie apocalypse stories tell us about our society? We no longer look for the monster in the outside world. We look for it within our culture, within our psyche. The monster is still a mirror, but now we know it reflects us. Ultimately, all these debates and complexities point to a fundamental problem of the human condition that we continue to grapple with: our inability to accept our own darkness. We project our rage, our envy, our cruelty onto an external creature, a monster, so we don't have to admit that these qualities also live within us. The monster is the scapegoat for our own demons. Level 3 leaves us with an uncomfortable truth. The reality of monsters is messy. There is no single correct answer. It's a whirlwind of psychology, history, moral contradictions, and questions that make us feel deeply human and at the same time, deeply confused. All right, you've survived the chaos. You've seen that things are much more complex than they seem. Now it's time to see the details that separate the curious from the true connoisseurs. It's time to descend to level 4. Level 4, expert knowledge, niche secrets. Here's something you won't find in a quick search. Biologists talk about ecological niches, the specific role a species occupies in an ecosystem. While psychologists and mythologists have discovered that monsters occupy imaginary niches. The kraken, for example, isn't just a giant octopus. It's the creature that perfectly fills the niche of terror of the unfathomable ocean depths, a space in our mental map that was empty and crying out for an inhabitant. Now, a scientific concept that explains why some modern monsters are so disturbing: the uncanny valley. Imagine your brain is a very strict bouncer at a nightclub. It sees a cartoon character like Mickey Mouse and says, "Clearly not human. Pass to the fantasy zone." It sees a real person and says, "Okay, you're one of us. Come in." But suddenly a hyper-realistic robot or a CGI character that is 99% human arrives. The bouncer's alarms go off. "Hold on a second. You're not from here, but you look too much like it. Something is very wrong." That feeling of something is wrong is the uncanny valley, and it's why creatures like Slender Man, with their almost human but strangely incorrect proportions, give us such a bad vibe. And on this journey, there are secret heroes. I want to tell you about Adrienne Mayer. She's not a famous name, but she's a classicist and science historian who did something revolutionary. While others read Greek myths as pure fantasy, she put on her detective boots and began connecting the descriptions of griffins, cyclops, and giants with the fossil findings of the time. She was one of the first to demonstrate with incredible rigor that many ancient monsters were, in reality, early attempts at paleontology. Now, do you want a truly rebellious theory, one debated in the darkest corners of academia? Julian Jaynes's bicameral mind. The idea, simply put, is that about 3,000 years ago, humans didn't have an inner voice, a consciousness like ours. Instead, they experienced their own mental processes as auditory hallucinations, as if an external voice was speaking to them. Those voices were the gods, or in moments of stress or fear, demons and monsters. A wild theory that proposes the first monsters were not imagined, but heard. And here's a scientific detail that directly clashes with our common sense. Instinctively, we think we should protect children from anything scary, but several studies on developmental psychology suggest something surprising. Stories with monsters in controlled doses and in a safe environment can be like a fear vaccine. They help children experience and process emotions like anxiety and terror, giving them tools to face real-world fears. Sometimes a little fear is good. And now the aha moment, the idea that connects almost everything we've seen. Psychologist Carl Jung spoke of archetypes. Think of them as pre-installed software in the human brain, universal patterns we all share. There's the archetype of the hero, the mother, the wise old man, and there's the archetype of the shadow. The shadow is the sum of everything we repress, everything we don't want to admit about ourselves. The monster is the face of that archetype. This explains why cultures without contact invented similar monsters, the software is the same, and why we feel so connected to them on a deep level. They are not just stories, they are part of our human source code. Reaching this level of detail isn't just about accumulating curious facts. It's about starting to see the deep patterns that connect biology, history, and art. It's about understanding the secret language with which humanity has told itself its own story for millennia. We have reached the limit of what is known with certainty. We have explored the known maps of the mind and history. Do you dare to look beyond, into the abyss, towards the final frontier? Welcome to Level 5. Level 5, the final frontier, speculation and awe. What will the monsters of the future be like? As our technology advances, our fears change. Forget vampires. Imagine an artificial intelligence that becomes conscious and sees us as a plague. Imagine a digital virus that doesn't delete your files, but your memories, your identity, creating a digital ghost of who you were. Our descendants won't look under the bed. They'll look at their screens in panic, fearing the monsters we ourselves are creating. And this leads us to the deepest question of all, one for which no one has an answer. If monsters are a manifestation of our fears of the unknown, does that mean that any form of consciousness, anywhere in the universe, needs to have its own monsters? Is it impossible to be conscious and not have a dark corner on the mental map that says, "Here be dragons"? Or is the fear of the unknown a flaw exclusive to the human mind? Now prepare for your brain to short circuit. What if the strangest monsters, those that cosmic horror writers like Lovecraft describe as indescribable and geometrically impossible, aren't just an exaggeration? What if they are the perfect metaphor for what would happen to our minds if we tried to comprehend a truly alien form of consciousness? The monster wouldn't be the creature itself, but the 404 error our brain generates when trying to process something for which it doesn't even have the slightest operating system. And understanding all this could be key to our future as a species. We constantly create monsters to simplify complex problems. Climate change becomes an apocalyptic movie villain. The opposing political faction becomes a horde of irrational monsters. If we don't learn to recognize our own instinct to monsterize what we don't understand, we will never be able to solve real problems because we will be too busy fighting the shadows we ourselves have projected onto the wall. And here's the last idea, the most provocative. Perhaps we've been wrong all this time. Perhaps monsters are not a mistake, nor a primitive vestige, nor a weakness. Perhaps they are one of the most sophisticated adaptations of the human mind. A gym for the soul, a flight simulator where we can practice courage, empathy, and resilience in a safe environment to be ready when we have to face the true monsters of life: loss, injustice, illness. Perhaps monsters are not the poison, but the vaccine. Our descent has ended. We have traveled from the surface of fairy tales to the depths of consciousness itself. Now, with this new perspective, it's time to return to the surface and contemplate the incredible full panorama. At the beginning of this journey, we said that a monster, a dragon, was something simple, a giant lizard that the hero had to kill. And now? Now we see that the same dragon can be a distorted memory of a dinosaur fossil, processed by a brain addicted to finding patterns, reinforced by confirmation bias, transmitted like a mental virus, embodying a universal archetype of our inner shadow, and perhaps serving as an essential training ground for our soul. We have gone from seeing a caricature to glimpsing one of the most complex and mysterious machines in the universe, the human mind. And now I ask you directly, from this whole journey, what idea, what level, what revelation has impacted you the most? Is there any monster that has always fascinated you and that you now see with different eyes? I want to sincerely thank you for dedicating your time to this deep dive. Your curiosity is what makes all this worthwhile. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm dying to read them. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, subscribe, because we have many more fascinating abysses to explore together. See you in the next one.